Girl, stop it. Oh, my goodness. Whew. firewood from the trees across the highway on our other property. It's a seasoned dead hemlock. There were 8 logs out of one tree, and about 16 feet long each. He's scoring up the ice so it's easier to drive on his way to get more logs. Hey puppers. Hey Hannah. Hello puppy. Come on puppy. Come in.
Well, there's the woodshed. Got a little wood in it from the slabs and stuff. We sawed up the other day, sawmill slabs. And but this is what I've been waiting for. Had a little hemlock tree over across the road on the property there that had died. And so I cut it down day before yesterday and started bucking it up, and then bucked it up yesterday and skidded it out to the road, and we just brought it up here and dumped it. So I'll cut most of this up for firewood. I've got one of the branches here. These big hemlock trees have these big gnarly branches on them. That's 4, 5, 6 inches in diameter, and they hang up there and they get dried out pretty good after they die. And but they are really good wood. They're denser than the wood in the log, and you can leave them round and stick them in the stove round, and they burn for a long time. They're good for overnight fires and stuff. So, but here's one little tree. Now I don't know if I can get around here or not. Well, there's the butt log. See, this butt was 30 inches across one way, well both ways. It was 30 inches in diameter, or diameter. And it looks like it's pretty good wood from what I can tell looking there on the butt cut, and then on the second cut, that's the second log there. So I might try to save those. I'm going to try to save those logs out to make lumber out of them, but the rest of it will be good firewood. I've got the logs that I'm going to cut up into firewood cut up, and I started splitting them. A lot of the wood that we split went into the shops for the stove, but I started making a stack there, and the old woodshed looks a lot better with a stack of wood in it. And this is going to be some pretty nice wood. It's still a little bit wet. It hasn't been dead very long. It wasn't standing dead very long, so the top of it is good and dead and dried out, but the rest of it is still got some moisture in it. You can see on these logs right here where there's some moisture in there, or these chunks right here. There's also some rot in the middle of it. The butt end was in good shape. The 2 butt logs were good, and then we started running into some rot in it, and the top was real good. A little bit of rot in it. Of course it was bare, and these hemlock have a tendency to do that, or spruce do too here. They'll get a cat face, a branch broken off or something, and exposed area up high, and the rot will go in that branch and then go down from there. Eventually it'll go down all the way to the butt of the tree and rot it off. But a lot of times you can cut out a good log in the middle of it, and the butt log will be good. Then you'll get rot in the middle of it, or you'll cut off the butt, will look good, and the next first cut you make, it'll be rotten there. So it's kind of hard to say. Usually you can bet a log, if you cut it off on the butt and it's not rotten, it'll be good all the way up. But these hemlock here are not like that, but it makes good firewood. I've been working on getting this hemlock log that we drug up here, or logs, a hemlock tree that we drug up here, split up and stacked in the woodshed. There's a rick of wood. That's I think 4 of the logs there that we got split up. Of course the smaller ones split up first because they were on the outside, and getting into the bigger ones now. But that's not quite a cord there, that rick. It's oh, it's about 10, 11 feet long and a little over 5 feet high. So if that woodshed had been 16 feet long and I had it 4 foot high, that would have been a cord. And if it was 12 foot long and 6 foot high, it would have been close to a cord. But it's not, it's short of a cord there now. We've got another rick behind it of sawmill slabs that we cut up, and so the two of them together make a long cord. We got 3 full logs left there, and 2 rounds off of, well, 3 rounds I've got off of 1 log. But the 2 big logs, the 2 butt logs there, I'm going to save those out and try to mill those up into some lumber. I thought I'd go over some of the tools that I use to split with. Probably the quintessential romantic tool for cutting wood, splitting wood and stuff that everybody's got to have is a double-bitted axe. You're not a lumberjack if you don't have a double-bitted axe, but it's pretty much the wrong tool for using for splitting wood. I don't know where I got this one. I've had it for a long time, but I haven't ever used it. And I've got several double-bitted axes with the heads laying around that I never did bother to put a handle in. But anyway, everybody's got to have a double-bitted axe. But this one needs to be sharpened. They're just not meant for splitting wood. They're meant to sharpen them up, and they're good for cutting branches. We used to use them. We'd keep one sharpened up on both ends, and then we'd use it on the landing for cutting the limbs off of logs that we'd pull in that didn't get trimmed off by the faller, the timber faller. And then of course use them for chopping down trees, cutting notches in a tree if we needed to for some reason, put a choker around it or something like that. There are different styles of double-bitted axes depending on the use of them. Some of them have a real narrow bowl for chopping a deep notch in for like a springboard or some other reason like a woodpecker hole. And others have a broader one, and some of them have different shapes on the face of them here. This one's fairly narrow, and that's for slicing, cutting in. Some of them will have a little bit broader to make the chip out better. Basically, they're used for cutting down trees. The advantage of them is when you go out, you can have 2 sides sharpened, and when one side starts getting dull, you can switch over to the other side. And sometimes you would sharpen one side with a stronger angle than the other side. One side would be sharpened with a fine angle for doing finer work for cutting, and then the other one would be sharpened with a steeper angle on it for chipping out, things like that, for doing different jobs, so you didn't have to carry 2 axes. But anyway, these aren't very good for splitting. You can split wood with them, but they're not the best tool for the job. Now this is a modern single bit axe, and it's got a plastic and fiberglass handle. This one's a little bit different than some of them because the head on it here is forged down in here, and I don't know how far down that goes, but it's actually a socket in the handle instead of the handle going into a socket on the axe. But again, it's not a very good example for splitting wood. It's just too narrow here through the body. And you drive it in. I've got it sharpened up. I had it sharpened up pretty good. I haven't used it for a long time, but it's good for limbing and for chopping down trees or chopping notches, things like that, but it's not very good for splitting. I haven't used it for a long time. What happens is you hit real hard in the wood, and the blade just gets buried in the wood, and it doesn't do anything. It doesn't force the wood apart. And this one's this is a true temper, and it's got a plastic and fiberglass handle, which is not too bad. Most of the fiberglass handles, the plastic handles, I didn't like. I found one years ago that I liked that was almost comparable to a wooden handle, and it had a fiberglass core with a plastic outer liner that wasn't too bad, but most of them just don't have the feel of a wooden handle. They hold up a little better, and especially in this country here where it's wet, these will take a lot more abuse when you overcut or when you run down into a piece of wood, and that chewing up of the wood area down in here where you're splitting a lot of wood, it'll hold up a little better like that. But this one's held up real good because I don't use it. Now this is probably the quintessential splitting tool. I use these a lot. Split rails, fence post, firewood. For hard wood, this is the way you start out. Now this one's got a fiberglass plastic handle on it again, so it's not the best, but it's good for up in here in this country where it's wet. And then of course the splitting wedge, I think you have to watch out for on these wedges and the mauls too is they start rounding over here and they'll start flaking off, so you got to watch out for chips coming off of them, getting in your eye or embedding in your skin. I've had sharp ones go right into my arm. But the real problem with them, other than getting one in your eye, now that's not any fun, but the real problem is it mushrooms out, then it hangs up in the wood when you drive it in there, and the maul will do that too. The way I use these is I'll find a spot in the wood where there's this natural check through it, like here, a wind split or something like that, and watch out for knots, work around the knots, and then just take this and set it in real good, and then back off, hit it a couple times lightly, and then drive it in. And then once you get it split, you can turn the handle around and bust it open like that. Now once you get it busted open like that, usually it's a simple matter of taking the maul and splitting off slices. Now sometimes on a real gnarly piece, a real hard piece, you might have to use a wedge to bust it up into a few smaller pieces, but I found that the maul works fine for that. Now in 1978, I got my arm broke in a train wreck, and I had to use the maul one-handed to split up our winter's wood, and I just used the split maul. Well, now I can't do it anymore. I was 26 years old then, so it was a lot easier. Well, my go-to machine for the last 30 years has been this axe, and I don't know what the brand name is on it. It's a cheap axe. I've put 3 or 4 handles on it and cleaned it up. I keep it sharpened up, but you can see it's fairly blunt. You keep it sharpened with a good sharp edge on it. It needs to be trued up a little bit now, but anyway, it's a lot blunter than those other axes, and most of the ones you buy these days. But this thing, I bust these things in two almost as easy with this as I can with the split maul and wedge. You gotta be able to hit the same spot, which I never could do. Now you got a big knot here. The best thing to do is work around those knots, come up to them slow, take them off a little bit at a time, not try to get the whole thing. Now when you get a piece of wood that's a little bit tough and it's splitting, you just take it and twist the handle just a little bit to pop that open. That one didn't need it. Okay, so much for splitting. Well, I got all of that wood split up that I'm going to. Those 2 logs are the ones I'm going to try to make lumber out of. And there's what the woodshed looks like now. I got, not quite half of that 3rd rick filled up. I probably would have had the whole thing filled up if I'd have just cut and split it all at one time and stacked it all at one time. But I've been taking it out of there pretty quick to burn in the stoves in the shop and the hangar, trying to keep ahead of this cold. Now the shop I can warm up pretty good, but the hangar I can just barely get it above freezing. But that's what I need to keep the moisture from condensing, the frost like it is on there in the shed, from condensing all over the tools and stuff in the shop, in the hangar. So I've been pulling wood out of there almost faster than I can split it. And my back wouldn't have put up with splitting it all at once anyway. It's protesting right now. Tell me I've done way too much. Anyway, that's a lot more wood than I had when I started. Well, it's been kind of chilly. It's warmed up to almost 20 now. It got down to probably 5 or 6 last night. Here you can see Some of the frost crystals, maybe, I don't know, they might be too bright. It was really pretty last night out here at midnight with the full moon out and bright with all this white. It was glittering. It was really pretty. I've always liked full moon nights in the wintertime when it was cold. Here's the top of my woodshed. Look like feathers or flower petals or something. Ice crystals.